Hello everybody, and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope we're doing well, and today I'll be doing a review of Venom, Let There Be Carnage, or Venom 2. Before going into my review, please make sure you smash that like button, light up that fire button if you're watching over on Odyssey, and also make sure you're subscribed to the channel with that bell notification turned on. That way you know every time a new video or live stream goes live on the channel. So Venom 2, I have finally been able to see this film, and I'm going to be honest, I liked it. Didn't love it, didn't hate it, but I liked it, which is a lot more than what I can say about the original film, which I just had a myriad of problems and issues with. Now, that's not to say that some of those problems don't carry over into this movie, but as an individual standalone film, I actually enjoyed it quite a bit, and I think a lot of it had to do with the runtime of it, and therefore the pacing, the writing, and the overall clip of the editing as well. I thought it was a very brilliant move on their part to make this film 97 minutes long. One of the things that may have hurt the original film was that I think they tried to do a little bit too much with it. They tried to make it a little bit on the longer side. I mean, not overly long necessarily, but still long enough to where you really honestly felt the runtime a lot more than in this film. Like that original one was 112 minutes. So again, not that much longer than what this one is, but those extra 10 to 20 minutes that you're not getting added onto this really does allow this film just to be able to just go from one point to the next, to be able to have fun. And that is, I think, what this film has going for it, is that it's just stupid fun. There's nothing revolutionary about the film. There's nothing revolutionary about the storytelling or about the visual effects, which is kind of upsetting a little bit. And that's kind of one of the gripes that I still have with this movie, is that the visual effects really aren't very good in comparison to a lot of the other stuff that we've seen from other studios. That being said, a film that is this time being helmed by the likes of, for the directing, Andy Serkis, I thought maybe they would be a little bit better. But as the actual effects are concerned, I think that they were probably limited to the budget of the film, which was around $100 to $110 million. So on the lower side, lower end of big budget films, especially featuring comic book characters, when you compare it to a lot of the other films that normally cost $150 to $200 million. And so I think with what they were using the money on, I think that the effects were about as workable as you could. I think what really helped in this film with Andy Serkis helming it is that he knows when and when not to use CGI. And I think he was also very clever in the use of CG, because when it came to a lot of the scenes with Venom and Eddie Brock, you had most of it happening just in Eddie's head, where you just had the voiceover instead of seeing Venom at all times. So I think having limited interactions with the actual physical Venom, one, was allowing them to save a little bit of money with the actual budget of the film, and two, also was, I think, also to focus more so on the relationship between Eddie Brock and the character of Venom, because they are two separate characters, two distinct characters, and I think that the relationship between them is really put in the spotlight this time around, and I think that it's done in a very effective way, where you just feel the bond and the friendship between these two, and obviously the falling out of friendship and then coming back together at the very end of the film. Another thing I also think that is a huge help for this film going forward was being able to, of course, and this is something that was at the very end of the last film, the casting here of Woody Harrelson as the character of Carnage. I thought that was also really great, because he comes in with a very over-the-top, zany performance, and again, adds to that fun level, and you really see kind of the opposite of what you see with Venom and Eddie Brock, where they are very much symbiotes, right? Obviously with, the character of Venom itself being a symbiote, the fact that they are actually working together and are connected in a very clear way, you see kind of the reversal of what you find in the character of Carnage, where it's actually just, again, fighting within himself for a wide variety of reasons. And I thought that dichotomy was actually pretty clever. Again, a good way of really showing how Venom, not really the hero necessarily, more of an anti-hero character, but having a very clear villain portrayed with Carnage, and Woody Harrelson being able to kind of add it to it being more zany than it being too serious, I think was a huge benefit too. The first film suffered, I think, a lot because it didn't know what kind of film it wanted to be. What did it want to be? A dark humor type movie? Did it want to be more on the zany side, more on the comic-y side, or did it want to be a little bit more serious? And I think it kind of delved too much into seriousness, which is why the film was just not palatable for a lot of different reasons. And that was, I think, a big part of it, was the tone. Whereas in this film, it just doesn't really try to be too serious. And that is, I think, very much to its benefit by allowing you just to be able to sit back and enjoy the show for 90 minutes. And I think it does that pretty well. I will say it definitely at the end kind of falls off a cliff. I've noticed that this has happened with a lot of films that have been coming out recently, is that the endings seem kind of rushed. Maybe it's because of a COVID thing. Maybe it's because of decisions made after the long delays of a lot of these movies. But it felt like kind of this random tacked on thing where it just wasn't really well thought out, and the kind of the pacing that had been going for a pretty good while and going at a decent clip all of a sudden just fell apart relatively quickly. And I thought that was kind of a sad thing to see overall. But with the actual story, again, it's serviceable for what it is. There's nothing revolutionary, but it does move at a nice enough clip to where you're fine with it. Michelle Williams is kind of this, again, side character very much, and I think that that's all that she and the other characters really needed to be, was having the focus instead be on Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock and Woody Harrelson as Carnage. I think having those be the focal points was a very good decision to have, despite, as I said, still having some of the CGI issues. I will also say that there were certain filmmaking elements of the film that definitely were only working specifically because of how the film was being presented, and would not have worked had they tried to go a little bit more serious with it. Because when you have not that great CGI, when you have an unpolished, kind of just crazy all over the place script, you really have to be able to have the characters that are going to be able to take that script and the actors to be able to carry that script along with them into making that whole story work. And I think that it was able to work, whereas in the first Venom, it was not able to work at all. Also, one thing that I noticed more so in this film than I did in the previous one was the score for the film was actually pretty fun as well. Nothing too memorable, but still, it was serviceable for what you were seeing on screen. You never felt like it was distracting. You felt like what you were hearing matched what was going on screen. And so, of course, that's something where you got to shout out Marco Beltrami for doing that. Cinematography by Robert Richardson. So that's a name that I've recognized. So yeah, he's done a lot of work before. Thought the cinematography was very capable. Interesting that Andy Serkis was able to get Robert Richardson on for a Venom film. So I thought that was a kind of interesting take on it. Overall, though, I do say that this was a fun experience. It's nothing groundbreaking. It's not something that I feel like I'm going to watch a lot of times necessarily, but I can understand why, one, it had a massive opening weekend with the $90 million compared to the original Venom's $80 million, and also why the film is likely going to be able to make some money at the box office once it starts to open up in some of the other markets. I've been mentioning this in my box office breakdowns where Venom's only made $191 million so far, but again, it's only been out for a few weeks. The big key there is look at how few countries it has actually opened in. This is supposed to show you the top 10 territories outside of the United States, and as you can see, Russia is up there with $28 million, and then Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, and there's still a plethora of countries that this film has not yet opened in, and many of them will be opening this weekend, or the film will be opening there this weekend, and so I expect the film will make a surge of money this coming weekend, not just in yet another likely strong take from the domestic, but more so because of the international box office numbers that will be coming in for this film. The film only needs to make around $247.5 million to break even. Being at 191 at this point, I think that it's very easily going to be able to reach that mark. Will it do enough to make $200 million domestically? I think the drop-off was enough where that might be in question, especially with films like Halloween Kills coming out this weekend, films like Dune coming out the week after that, and so it's going to be a bit of a fight of the box office of whether or not this film is able to get to that point. But those are my thoughts on Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage. I think that if I had to give this film a grade, I'd give it a B-. Definitely, it's nothing that you're going to necessarily remember for years to come. There is, of course, the scene at the end where it kind of ties it into the MCU, and so there's this question of, exactly how will Venom be brought into the MCU, because clearly the MCU has been brought into at least this Venom film. What the next Venom will look like, does this justify necessarily them being able to complete it with an actual trilogy? I don't quite know if it's that good, but if it makes enough money, which it seems like it will, then it would obviously not surprise me for them to do that. But overall, a B- film for me, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that they were able to embrace the zany and were able to kind of just let go, not be too serious, and have that 90-minute runtime. I think all of those things, with Andy Serkis behind the helm, knowing how and when to use CGI, even though it's not the best, in the right way, I think ended up working to its benefit. But what are your thoughts about the film Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage? Have you seen it? Did you like it? Did you not like it? I've heard a lot of mixed things about it. Again, I can understand why anyone would love or hate this film. I definitely do think, though, that there is enough here for most people in general to enjoy. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below this video. Smash that like button, light up that fire button on Odyssey. It really does mean a lot. You're all amazing and beautiful people. Huge shout out to Kara Tharp and also to Bifford the Hobbit over on Locals. And you guys are great. Have a wonderful day. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge shout out to all of my Patreon, Subscribe Star, and Locals members. Andrew Hoyle, Animation Commentator. Brandon, Brian P., Christopher Bowman, Don Bruno de la Mancha, Father Christopher Miller, hail to you, Father. Father Damian Cook, Garrett Searles, Harold Francis, Inflamed Wood, Jacob Juice, Jeffrey Toone, Joe Horn, Jonathan Carney, Gomer Kyle, 79, Laura, the Modern Major General's Story, Mike Jackson, Dion, Mad Mitch Dunaway, Mondo Spieler, Mr. Peabody, On to June, Orange Hat Reviews, Out of Step with Reality, Priscilla Hall, Rosetta Alden, Stan Andrian, Teresa Martin, Theodore Benden, Tina Bojan, and Tina B., the Empress of the Universe. Thank you for being my Patreon members. And a huge shout out to my Subscribe Star members, The R, Fast Reaction, Nosferatu Gatsu, John B., Perpetual Punster, Mr. Roy, Glinzer, J. Alex McCarthy Jr., Dean Heist Slash, the new number 2, J-Rod the Beer Guru, and ZK-Man. Thank you very much for supporting me over on Subscribestar. And to my one Locals member, Robert Barnes, thank you for supporting me over on Locals. And if you want a name shouted out, or your name rather, shouted out at the end of every single live stream and video, please consider joining on one of those platforms, either Patreon, Subscribestar, or Locals. Links to that can be found in the description. Look at that top link especially. It's called the Willow link there. It'll give you links to all the social media platforms and also ways to support the channel. If you want to be an Army of Asgard level or above member, you can get access to giveaways that I do every single month. I give away 4Ks, Blu-rays, all kinds of stuff. It is a lot of fun. Also, if you join at the Keeper of the Bifrost level, you get access to all of that. Plus, you get access to an exclusive podcast that I do with John the Flick Pick Flickinger. We have a lot of fun. We do that once or twice a month. And if you join at the Chosen of Valhalla level, you get all of that. Plus, in your first month, you get a t-shirt of your choice and send anywhere in the world. And also, you get to be featured on the channel once a month on the Chosen of Valhalla live stream where we get to hang out and have a good time. So anyway, if any of that sounds good, check out that link in the top of the video as I mentioned. You guys are amazing and beautiful people. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless.